About 1.8 million homeless individuals are living in India. Nearly half of this population, around 35% of them, are living in slums. Majority of this population, both rural and urban, are living in homes with space smaller than the minimum floor area per person recommended for prison cells. Being the fact there is no proper awareness on the planning and designing of the individual space for compact and smart living. To bring in the awareness among the common public about the small scale architecture and the possibility of utilizing spaces in tiny area, I designed a portable combined detachable housing unit in a 6 feet by 6 feet of space on the back of an auto rickshaw to demonstrate the power of small spaces. This unit has all the necessary spaces that a resident should have. It has a living area, kitchen, there is a bathroom, there is a toilet, there is space for walking, there is a sleeping area and also lawn space with shade on the terrace. After this project reached a wider audience, we received queries from common public all throughout India for whom we got a chance to give consultation to improve their living standard by proper spatial utilization and to transform their lives a bit. Currently, we are working on the possibility on catering our services for masses with respect to designing small spaces. One of the main factors that revolves around a small scale architecture or to the fact any category of a design is the behavioral design. How we structure an individual's experience and what change we are making in terms of his behavior is an essential aspect for all the design. We always tend to see things in the way we need them to be. All our needs are systematically stigmatized based on our living among the society and its correspondence. There are various ways we could script our way of living and its narrative through schematic designing of things. All my works predominantly revolve around this principle of designing an experience that influences individuals' behavior. Behavioral design is a core principle of any design, whether it is architecture, art, food, or fashion. A design should always influence the change in the behavioral pattern of the user, and every design has its own behavioral capacity at which it can influence it. One crucial part of this behavioral design is that there is a fragile line between positive influence and manipulation. Often people try to go overboard in manipulating the user, but eventually it would overpower the ideology of the particular design and it loses its credibility. You have to break the consciousness of the user by introducing a new narrative or a new character to the design that influences the behavior change among them. As an architect or a designer, our role and purpose is to influence the people positively in terms of using our space or a product in a certain way. When you are able to redefine this behavioral change among them, your design starts evolving. There is a particular rule of behavioral classification in design that I look at during the process of designing. That is the good, bad and ugly rule. This applies to any category of a design. If you take any design and you can analyze the behavioral aspect of the design using these three factors: good, bad and ugly behavior of the design. So to make it simple, let's look at this from a questionable connotation. What makes it good? When will it go bad? Why it feels ugly? Here the good and bad especially deals with the functional aspect of the design, whereas the ugly deals with the psychological aspect of it. So the first factor of any design is to understand its context and to develop a solution for a problem, which is a good factor that predominantly deals with the experience of the design. Next is when you're designing, the main criteria you have to look out for is the possibility of how bad this product might behave in terms of failure, like in the durability, the material, the usage and so on. We should always look out for the possibility of obstacles that might turn bad in the future and the problem that might be arising. It's not always about how you solve everything in a single design. It's about the planning that you do to overcome the challenges that might come in the future. So we're not only designing for the present, we have to look out for the future as well. The third aspect actually deals with the psychological aspect of it. Every design has its own subjective value and emotion towards the user in terms of how they perceive the particular design. A design should always create a positive emotion within the audience and it should not create any adverse impact or aggressive nature towards the user. This ugly predominantly deals with the psychological discomfort of any design. And one of the strong examples for this ugly factor is the hostel architecture that we find in the urban design. The main purpose of the design is to avoid littering, sleeping or just to deter homeless people to put up there for the night. But this not only showcase the aggressive nature of resolving a problem, additionally it creates a negative connotation among the common public. The main contradiction that creates the ugliness in this design is a visual structure. Here the design are trying to cater to a specific purpose by avoiding other functions, like it provides you with a seating but it doesn't allow you to sleep. The secularity and discrimination among this society and culture towards a certain group of people becomes very apparent in the public design. Similarly, any design might have this ugly factor associated with it, and as an architect, it's our responsibility to provide a psychological comfort on using our design. I want to give you an example of this behavioral design and the usage of good, bad, and ugly rule through the project that we completed last year called ChaiGaadi for the brand ChaiGaadi. Here, the main challenge was to design an experience of drinking chai in the urban crowd. Even though the ideology behind this product is very simple of selling chai among the crowd, there is already a culture being associated with tea and Indian tea stall. So it was really challenging for us to redefine the existing typology and to influence a change in the behavioral pattern of the existing user. Tea is one of our most consumed and beloved beverages. The aesthetical palette and certain memories are always associated with us right from the childhood. So we wanted to interpret all the elements and characters of the Indian tea stall within the design. So we actually designed an entire cafe within the space of 1.5 square feet box. To crack this idea, we didn't think of anything out of the box. To the contrary, we just thought of something inside the box. Not for the metaphor. Literally, the main concept of this design is designing an absolute void. We just use the empty space within the box to accommodate all the amenities and the spaces required for the cafe. So the good factor in the design is how we utilize the space and the experience that we have designed revolving around the space. So it's more of a package of surprises that opens out to reveal its characters to the onlookers and the customers. And then the second one of which is the bad factor. There are a few challenges we have to overcome while designing that might have affected the product very badly in the future. Like in terms of mobility, we have to work on the entire product as lightweight as possible. At the same time, we have to work on the behavior of the user revolving around the space, like in terms of the littering and also in terms of the crowd management. Since the entire idea behind the product is to cater to the crowd, so the shape, the scale and of the product are planned in a way to handle the crowd circumferentially and getting them at a singular point. There is even a wastage bin in the product itself to avoid all the littering that will usually be seen near this mobile kiosk. So this is how we looked at all the constraints of the bad behavior that might have affected the product in the future. So the third aspect is about the ugly behavior. Even though the design might stand out alien to the urban masses, we want to establish some sort of inclusivity and adaptability within the local audience. So we structured the aesthetic palette to be minimal, yet by bringing in some tinge of stainless steel and copper color within the palette similar to the Iranian boiler. So if you look at the balance and shape of the scale, you could visualize it as a typical Indian tea stall that we see in the urban streets. So even though there is a slight alienation between associated within the product, we try to overlay it with a common visual color palette and the ambience that will have been used to providing psychological comfort among the users. We wanted that metaphorical play in the visual structure of the product. Here by changing the behavioral pattern of the people experiencing the tea stall that's so tiny, movable and at the same time providing them with the psychological comfort of the typical Indian tea stall. Behavioral design is a concrete factor that helps us to redefine the product and the experience that's been associated with it. In all my designs, whether it's architecture, product or even furniture, I always work on this good, bad, ugly rule of the behavioral design and it always worked great for me. Behavioral design is a part of any design and any good design you consider will be influencing the behavior of its user to an extent. Everyone needs a change in this world and how you are bringing that change is what makes you stand out. Thank you.